I got you, man. I understand your point, and a lot of it makes sense. I agree.
I appreciate how open-minded you're being. Everyone is human enough to say, maybe I was wrong about something. Everyone can be wrong about something. Sometimes you can be wrong about very, very big things.
The more I sit here and talk with you, man, the more I realize there's a big part of me that has a lot of anger. There's also stuff that where I think like, damn, maybe I'm being too cruel, and my beliefs aren't exactly aligned correctly.
Dude, and making those types of realizations about yourself is what being human is. The problem that I have is that the right has so quickly went, not from saying, this is very sad, we love this guy, whatever, that's fine. They've very quickly made it, the Democrats have to pay. And that, to me, makes this worse. It's the reason that people like probably Parker and Dean and other prominent political creators now are like, can I go out in public without looking over my shoulder? Is there someone going to come after me for retribution now? Do they hold me responsible for the actions of one lone gunman because I'm a left-leaning person or I'm a progressive? So I blame Trump for that, for raising the temperature constantly in American politics since he came down that escalator in 2015.
Yeah, I'll agree with you in terms of the fact that Trump and a lot of conservative politicians really do like to essentially feed fire to the flame. I agree with that.
I think that's true, and I also think Trump is the one that was like, hey guys, I'm showing up to the hiking trip in the woods with some gasoline and a match. That's different than just adding adding fuel to the fire. He started a lot of fires.
Yeah, but I will also say this. Imagine this from, Trump's perspective and individuals closely connected to Charlie, right?
Yeah.
One of their best colleagues, one of their greatest allies, was just murdered.
Sure.
And,
does that
they have a lot of...
blaming the quote-unquote radical left for this? Shouldn't the president try to lower the temperature and bring America together when something like this happens, and the first thing he does is divide us even more?
You know what? I'll agree with you a little bit on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you for being honest about that.
Yeah. As someone who voted for Trump, it came down to a decision of, do I want to vote for somebody who believes more of what I believe in or less of what I believe in?
And listen, I believe in a country where I don't like who you voted for, and I can try to persuade you by debating people like Charlie Kirk to change your mind. Because when I first got involved in politics as a teenager in high school, I was a very right-wing guy. I loved Ben Shapiro. I loved Steven Crowder. And what made me a progressive, it wasn't seeing someone attack them. It was seeing someone prove them wrong and make better, more convincing arguments that appealed more to my values as a person. So I would hope that as someone who voted for Trump but is still seemingly willing to call him out for what he did here, if you can take a step back and reconsider, is this a movement that is good for the country that I want to be associated with? Because I don't think it is. And I think there's a lot of people out there who I don't think are bad people. I don't think that everyone who voted for Trump is like irredeemable and deplorable, but I do think that a lot of them are very misled, and I try to reach out to them when it's possible. Some of them don't want to listen, but I'm hoping that people can wake up and realize here, oh, Trump doesn't actually really care about Charlie Kirk, because if he cared, this is not how you respond when you care. This is not. This is how you respond when you're an opportunist trying to build a pretext for something else.
Here's my opinion on it, right?
Okay.
I disagree. Trump definitely, in my true and honest opinion, really did care about Charlie Kirk and his entire family.
Okay.
He was a close friend to Charlie Kirk, was always there, and Charlie Kirk's a main reason that Donald Trump got elected this year.
That is true.
Or last year. I disagree in the fact that I think Trump is being opportunist about it. In my opinion, when I try to think about, in terms of getting inside the head of Donald Trump and, his mindset on the whole thing, I think he's very upset, very angry, and he's at a point where he's so upset and so mad that he is, essentially, he's looking for someone to blame,
so
and
what
he's
you just
ready to go to war.
Is a gut emotional response that I guess makes sense, but it's the president of the United States has to be held to a higher standard. He has to be. And this is just evaluating Trump in a vacuum. Like I've said, maybe Trump does care about Charlie Kirk in some way. If they spent time together, I'm sure he cares about Charlie Kirk more than the average person he's never met. Sure, that's fine. But I don't think Trump cares about political violence in America. Actually, no, I know Trump doesn't care about political violence in America. I know for a fact he doesn't. Because we know what he was saying on January 6th. He was watching it on TV for 3 hours before he told people to go home. His aides came in and told him, sir, they're chanting, hang Mike Pence. And he said, okay, so what? That's not someone who cares about making tensions go down or making America unified. It's not.
With all due respect, when did he say, so what?
You should look this up. This came out a while after January 6th. You should look up Donald Trump told Mike Pence hanging January 6th. Like, there was reporting on this extensively. And we also have from the January 6th Select Committee, like, we know what was being done in the White House as this was happening. And you remember the tweet where Trump said Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do the right thing?
I do remember that. That is
Do you
correct.
know he tweeted that after he was told that they've broken into the Capitol, and before he told anyone to stop and put down your flags and go home? Before he said be peaceful, go home, whatever. The first thing he tweets after hearing Capitol has been breached, sir, is Mike Pence didn't have the courage, as Mike Pence and his staff are like running for their life in there. And then just so we're clear, here's another thing you probably don't know. You know Kevin McCarthy, Speaker of the House?
Yeah, I do.
As he was in hiding during January 6th, him and Trump are on the phone, and he's telling Trump, hey, call these people off. What the hell is this? And Trump tells him, well, Kevin, it seems like people are really upset about the election. As he's hiding in the Capitol building, as Mike Pence is running, this is not just someone who doesn't care about political violence. He reveled in it, and he tried to use it to his advantage to try to coup our government against Republicans that I don't even like. I hate Mike Pence and Kevin McCarthy.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, man. I'm not the hugest Trump supporter. I voted for him
I understand
based
that.
off of the fact that it was him or Kamala Harris. There's a
How is
million
that not
reasons why.
disqualifying, though? What has Kamala Harris ever done that comes close to that?
Well, when it comes down to Kamala Harris, right?
Yeah.
She was Joe Biden's vice president during a administration that, in my opinion, truly did not succeed or have any real success in terms of
So, number
politics.
one, obviously, I disagree with you on the policy aspect of Biden versus Trump's success. But here's the thing. Let's say I even agree, Sleepy Joe, horrible policy, open borders, everything was bad. Let's say I agree with all of that. That means you have one candidate who, in your eyes, has bad policies, and one candidate who tried to coup the United States government. How is this even hard to pick here? I can be very crystal clear, very, very crystal clear. If the shoe was on the other foot and Kamala Harris had tried to coup violently the United States government by engaging in criminal acts of fraud to change elector slates, and then she was running against like Mitt Romney or something, I would either abstain or I might even vote for Mitt Romney, because I'm not going to vote for someone who wants to destroy the constitutional framework of this country. That's bigger than politics. It just is.
Here's my opinion on it, right? I don't believe truly that Trump wanted the exact response that happened at the Capitol.
Maybe
I
that's
think
true,
that
but he liked it when it happened. That's the
and
problem.
I wouldn't say I can 100%, say factually that I think he liked it, but at the
No,
same time,
we
I don't
he
think
liked
he
it.
would.
Again, if someone tells you, and imagine you're sitting in the Oval Office and you get your people reaching out, sir, rioters have breached the Capitol fence. And you're like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go tweet at Mike Pence right now. And we know this happened because you see the rioters at January 6th reading on their phone with like a megaphone Trump's tweet as it comes out. So he's literally adding fuel to a fire that he was told about minutes before. In what world is that not disqualifying alone? Forget every other piece of policy and whatever. That alone, if Obama did that, Biden did that, anyone who does that to our system of government is un-American and should be nowhere near power. And that's not political.
I get
it's
your
just
point.
not.
I see it.
I appreciate
But
that you see it. And just by the way, I know like change. I'm not going to ask you to change your entire political viewpoint on a live stream where I'm like verbally berating you. That's fine. But I hope that after this live ends, you really stop and think about it for a second. What kind of man does that? What kind of let's just be clear, right? Let's say that Mike Pence does do what Trump wants him to do. He certifies a fraudulent slate of electors the paperwork was illegally filled out by Trump and his people to certify people that were not legitimate electors. And Mike Pence reads out on the day of the electoral count, we are certifying Donald Trump as president. And then Trump says, looks like I'm in to stay. Would you find that acceptable? I don't think you would. You seem like deep down like a reasonable guy.
I am. There's a big part of me that truly, loves the whole conservative mindset, and I really do lean conservative.
And just by the way,
in
you
most of
can
my
lean
values.
conservative and say, I would like low taxes, I'm like pro-business, I don't like big welfare programs, and I will intensely debate you on that and say you are dead wrong. But that is a whole different level below in terms of importance. Someone who tries to coup our government and destroy our Constitution. This should be something that whether you want high taxes, low taxes, universal health care, only private health care, that stuff should be secondary to should we live in a constitutional system with basic checks and balances where one man cannot try to bully his party into coupping the government when he loses an election?
I get what you're saying, and there's a big part of me that truly feels that Trump, while he wanted people to, voice their opinion and go and protest at the Capitol, I truly believe, he wasn't trying to have people, raid the Capitol in the way they did. Because there's a lot of Trump supporters that are far more, I guess the right word is
I just
far
have a
right
hard
wing,
time
right?
believing that he was against it when he pardoned all of these people, including people that beat police officers and they were convicted of seditious conspiracy. I don't understand what good faith argument anyone could make. I won't say I'll understand it, but if he just pardoned the people that were convicted of nonviolent crimes, I would still rail against it. But it's like cartoonishly evil to just pardon people that in an attempted coup of the US government beat Capitol Police with like poles and smash their heads between doors. Like, there's no excuse for that. And you can't just say like, oh, maybe he was in a bad mood. This is the president of the United States.
I'll level with you. I actually had no idea, and maybe provide a name to really solidify this in my mind. But I had no idea.
What I would encourage you to look up after this live is Trump's phone call with Kevin McCarthy during January 6th. And look up, we have a very detailed timeline, like minute by minute. When was the fence first breached? When did they go in the building? When did Trump say what? When did he tweet this or that? Just look into it yourself. Again, I'm not going to ask you to change your entire politics on stream with me here now. But this is why I opened by saying, I don't think that everyone who voted for Trump is inherently irredeemable and deplorable. There are some very horrible, bigoted people on that side. But I think there are other people like you who are like, wait a second, I didn't even know Trump did that. That is kind of crazy. And then I'll say, I'll give you the grace to look into this yourself and hopefully be consistent enough to really critically reevaluate your foundational beliefs about American politics and say, wait, was I on the wrong side for a little bit? Maybe I still support low taxes, conservative policies, but maybe I shouldn't be supporting this guy who at every single given moment has escalated tensions, made America more polarized, made jokes about other people being attacked with hammers, was reveling in the fact that his supporters tried to help him do a coup. Like, these are beyond politics. And I'm happy that you said I didn't know about that, because the impression that I get from a lot of MAGA when I talk to them is they didn't know about that. They didn't know that Trump is on tape admitting to committing. There was two indictments, federal indictments, the Jack Smith indictments, that MAGA says were politicized. And they say they're politicized because all the news they consume, Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Patrick Bet-David, Tim Pool, all these people told them, the DOJ can indict a ham sandwich if they want to. There was no actual reason to indict Trump. I'll encourage you after this, after you read the Kevin McCarthy thing with Trump, there's audio recording of Trump at a dinner party, right? Dinner party, journalists, friends are there, wealthy donors are there, and he pulls out attack plans, classified military attack plans on Iran. And he says to them, I shouldn't be showing you this. If I was president, I could have declassified them, but I'm not president anymore, so I can't. And this is top secret. He says this verbally and brags about, look at these attack plans that I have. And those were only some of the documents he was indicted, not just for not returning. It's normal for people not to return documents. But when the DOJ asked, hey man, can you please return these documents? He obstructed justice. He told, and we have text message evidence, we have security camera footage, that he told people who worked for him before the DOJ gets here, move the boxes, hide them. So this is a bad faith actor who is a danger to our country. If you're a conservative, liberal, whatever, that's a different conversation. If you are someone with basic human decency that believes in our constitutional democracy, you can't support this. And I don't think deep down you do.
Yeah, what it comes down to, right, is that I think both political parties, and with what you're saying, I truly believe that you're saying all these things and they're true and you have facts behind them. You seem like a very intelligent guy, and I don't think you would just say it out of the blue without any evidence behind it. The more I sit here and think about it, I just wish that politicians were more honest, man.
I agree, but I'll push back a little on the both sides thing, because you can say that both sides have done bad things, but they're not comparable. Like, no Democrat has tried to coup the government. Every single Democrat that I know of condemned this yesterday. Zoran Mamdani, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth. The list is endless. And I will urge you to go back to when Paul Pelosi, again, was attacked with a hammer in his home, and he was in seriously bad condition, because it turns out when someone hits you in the skull with a hammer, that's life-threatening. And then Trump gives a speech where he's like, oh, how's Nancy's husband doing, by the way? She said she doesn't support walls, but she has one around her house, and it clearly didn't do a very good job. And then he chuckles, and the whole crowd chuckles. There's no parallel to that on the other side. There just isn't.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Trump, I think he's a good politician in terms of the fact that he knows how to be a politician, how to,
I do too. No one knows better how to be a politician than Trump does. I agree with that.
Yeah, how to spark energy, how to get people to support your side, and all kinds of things like that. And what it comes down to is
sorry to cut you off. There are two main ways to really be good at politics. When you're talking to people to get them animated, to get them out to vote, there's two main ways, okay? These are just two fundamental ways that human beings engage with, like, leadership and society. You can use fear or you can use hope. And Trump has never used hope. He has always used fear. He has always told people that other people in this country who either don't look like you, don't believe the same things as you, they are your enemies, they're coming for your jobs, they're coming for your safety and your livelihood, they're coming for everything. He uses fear. So of course he's a good politician, because he taps into something very primal, which is We're the in group, that's the out group. They want to hurt us, they want to harm us. And what does that translate into? It translates into now what he's doing, where people say, okay, why do Democrats oppose kicking illegals out of the country? I'll have you know that not just Democrats, but everyone in America virtually will agree that if someone comes here illegally and then commits a violent crime, they should be deported. No one disagrees on that. The issue is that's not what Trump is doing. What Trump is doing is he's taking documented immigrants, removing their documentation to turn them undocumented, and then saying, looks like you're undocumented, we gotta deport you. We literally have cases of people showing up to immigration court, they followed every single rule, they came to a port of entry, they scheduled an appointment, they followed every single rule they were given of the legal process. They show up to immigration court, you have 30 ICE officers hiding in the stairwell, waiting. They send someone in to talk to the immigration judge, and they say to the immigration judge, hey, we as a DHS are actually dropping this case of asylum. When they drop the case, the person's now in legal limbo. They scheduled the case, they showed up to have their case heard, and maybe get asylum. And then when they actually show up, the judge says, sorry, I can't hear you out on your asylum claim because the government just dropped your case. And the guy's like, that's weird. Like, what the hell? Like, I just went through, like, I walked like hundreds of miles to get here, and then I scheduled my appointment. Like, what the hell? They walk out, instantly they're cuffed. And then they're deported. That's sadistic. That's not law and order. That's not making America safe. That's not anti-crime. That's just hurting people who are doing everything the way they're supposed to do it. There's no good reason to do that. There just isn't.
I got you, man. I understand your point, and you know, a lot of it makes sense. You know, I agree.
I appreciate how open-minded you're being.
And that's how I've always been about politics. You know, there's a lot of me that loves conservative values, and there's also a lot of me that loves liberal values.
And that's fine. Like, there's certain things you might call conservative values that I love. I love the idea of like family values. I'd love to have like a wife and kids and all that stuff. That's all great. I think that families make America great. Like, there's certain things that are fine. As long as when you say conservative values, it doesn't mean that I want to take rights away from other people, right? So people will say like, it's against my values to have this type of relationship or this type of lifestyle or dress this or that way. No one is forcing you to dress that way or live that way. All we are saying is that when you live in a society with people that are different than you, that you treat them with basic human respect. Because you might not understand why this person talks this way or dresses this way. You don't have to understand. You can try to understand if you want to talk to them, get to know them. But all anyone wants is a civilized society where no one has to live in fear of like, shit, I look kind of Hispanic. Am I going to get detained by ICE today? Or I'm trans. Is someone just going to randomly verbally abuse me today as I'm on the subway for no fucking reason? Like, that's all liberals and people that are progressive are calling for. And I'll say to you, as someone who once was in your shoes and once was a right-winger myself when I was very young, that it is extremely hard to just fully flip to the other side because you've built so much of your identity and everything about you on these conservative principles, these conservative commentators. It's not an overnight process. And I know that just berating someone and bullying them is probably not going to change their mind, which is why I'm giving you things to think about. I'm not expecting you to change your mind here, but I really, really hope that you can see that I'm trying to talk to you with good intentions right now. You don't seem like a bad guy. And I would hope that if I talk to you like a year from now, you're a more moderate person politically, and you say, you know what, I voted for someone like Trump. I'm ashamed of it. I made a mistake. I wouldn't do it again. I'm trying to learn more. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone can learn and grow from them. That is literally all I want politics to be. And that was exactly what I plan to do in my debate with Charlie Kirk, is say, I don't think he's a great guy. I think he's lying to you guys on some things. I think he's wrong on some things. And if you are someone who idolizes Charlie Kirk, I don't think you're necessarily evil, but I think you're misguided. And I would ask you to take a step back and see that I don't hate you. I'm saying this with kindness. I would hope that everyone is human enough to say, maybe I was wrong about something. Everyone can be wrong about something. Sometimes you can be wrong about very, very big things. I was a huge Marco Rubio supporter in the 2016 primary. I would never vote for Marco Rubio for president now. But I still have compassion for that previous version of myself, because in order to get to the truth and learn things, you have to make mistakes along the way. That's just how it works. And I hope you can undergo that process.
I'll tell you a little bit of a story, and I'll give you an example of something that's, challenged my beliefs a little bit lately.
Okay.
So, starting in February, I started working construction, right? I work on this really huge data center project, massive. And a large majority of the people that work on this job site are illegal immigrants, straight up. There's no running from that fact.
Sure.
Going into it, I was very intimidated. I didn't speak the language, and I had no idea, the things people would say to me and stuff
like that. Can I ask you a question real quick? I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought.
Yeah, real quick, please.
Do you think they might also have felt intimidated when they're like, we're working here without papers, we're just trying to feed our families, and people that are, born in America might look at us a little bit sideways and think that we're dangerous when we're just trying to make a living, and they call us illegal just because we don't have proper documentation. And in some cases, they do have proper documentation. They're just waiting for an immigration judge to hear their case. Can you empathize with that perspective as well?
Yeah, I can. In terms of illegal, I'm simply stating somebody who, in terms of technicalities, right? broke the
I'm
law
not
and
trying to
came
language
over. I
police
don't
or
mean to
anything.
use
I don't
that.
use the term
Yeah.
like that, but I understand. Yeah.
But I went into this job site, and it was my first construction job. I had never been on a construction site like this. The first day, I'm sitting in this trailer, and it's next to an Air Force base. It's next to
Okay.
Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, right? And there's all these jets flying overhead, and there's all this loud noise, and we're doing this meeting and whatnot. I get into this job, and a couple weeks in, and these guys start teaching me Spanish, right?
Hmm.
Yo habla español because of these guys.
Yeah. Yo hablo.
And yeah, and I get to learn some Spanish because of them. And over time, I got very connected with my crew, which is all Mexicans,
Hmm.
straight up, all of them.
Yeah.
I'm the only white guy in my entire crew.
Sure.
And the more I get to know these guys, and the more I hang out with them, the more they share their food with me. They would buy me lunch if I didn't have lunch, and all kinds of stuff. They would always take care of me. I mean, the other day, I went into work and I hadn't had a haircut in a minute because I crashed my car a while ago.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's my own fault. I was just being a fucking idiot, driving really fast with my friend, and I crashed it. It's my fault. Don't feel sorry for me. But I crashed my car, right? And I'm low on money because I just had to buy a new car and stuff. And they're all telling me, it's like, hey, Charlito, and they all call me Charlito because my name's Charles. They're like, Charlito, if you don't get your hair cut, we're gonna cut your fucking hair for you. And sorry to curse. I don't know if
No, it's
you're
fine.
all right with cursing, but they're like, we're gonna cut your hair for you. And at first I thought they were kidding, right? But next thing, these two guys on my crew, they're twins, really cool dudes, right?
Yeah.
There's these twins, and one of them brought their wife out there, and she came up to me, and we hang out all the time because she's usually my spotter when I'm up in a scissor lift working and stuff. And she's like, if you don't cut your hair, blah blah blah, I'm gonna cut it for you. I didn't believe her, but a couple days ago she showed up while we were eating lunch. She brought out a clipper, and she cut my hair. She gave me a really good haircut.
Mhm.
These guys feed me, and they take care of me and stuff. And the more I sit here and talk with you, man, the more I realize there's a big part of me that has a lot of anger and I wouldn't say hatred because I don't necessarily hate anybody.
Sure.
It would take a lot for me to hate anyone, but I have a lot of anger and energy that has been built up throughout my whole life. And being out here with these guys and having them teach me how to do, because I'm a taper, right? Drywall taping, it's
Okay.
really really hard to do.
Mhm.
And I'll disagree, Chucky. I don't want to deport any of them. I disagree.
Yeah,
I
say
would have
just ignore the comments right now because some people are going to hop in without any of the context of what we just talked about. So just continue your story.
And the more I get to know them, the more I've questioned my beliefs. And there's a big part of me that wants to stay strong to what I have believed in for such a long time because it's a big part of my family. My whole family are Republicans.
Sure.
All of them. They're all, true diehard conservative Republicans. There's a lot of stuff that they say I believe in that
Sure.
I agree with, but there's also stuff that where I think like, damn, maybe I'm being too cruel, and my beliefs aren't exactly aligned correctly.
Dude, and making those types of realizations about yourself is what being human is. And being able to grow from that and acknowledge your mistakes and notice flaws with your own thinking, that's important. That's what makes us, that's what gives people the ability to be better and to influence others, right? Like, I'm sure you've thought about it. Like, if you were wrong about judging them by their cover, what other things might you be wrong about that you make a snap judgment because, media has taught you certain things, friends and family have taught you certain things. And, you can always say that I think ultimately people do have similar values. Like we want everyone to be able to do well for themselves, afford healthcare. You talked about how you were down a few $100 or something because you had to pay for your car repairs. That's why I believe as a progressive in things like universal healthcare, because I understand if someone's living paycheck to paycheck, hitting a pothole or breaking your windshield can be the difference between whether like how many groceries you can afford that month, right? Or like whether you can afford to take your kids to the movies that month one time to try to have some kind of positive experience. Like our financial situations oftentimes have ripple effects on how we interface with our communities, with our friends, with our families. And as a progressive, all I want to do is have a government that makes an environment that brings the best out in people. I think the best comes out of people when they don't have to stress in this rat race of like, I haven't hit my deductible yet. I've been having back pain for 2 months, but I can't go into the doctor because I'm gonna have to pay out of pocket the first $4,000 or $5,000 before my insurance chips in, and then they might still deny my claim, right? So like, people talk about things like family values. I love family values. That's why I want a child tax credit. I want universal child care. I want paid family leave. If someone has a kid, they shouldn't have to pick between, am I going to be present for the first few years of my kid's life, or am I going to be paying the bills to buy their baby food, buy their crib, pay for groceries and other stuff, pay the rent or mortgage or whatever. So like, you seem like a guy, from what I can tell, that could believe and agree with everything that I just said.
I would say I do, to be honest with you. It's so hard with politics, right? Because you have one side that believes a very specific group of ideas, and then another side that believes in a very specific group of ideas, and it's really hard to find, a middle
Yeah.
ground between those two groups.
I'll give you a
That's
piece of
perfect.
advice that I have internalized myself, is that everyone likes to use the phrase, I'm an independent thinker, I think for myself. Very, very little people actually do that. People have their 3 or 4 political commentators that they regurgitate their political opinion. They have their Twitter accounts, their news channels, and their friends and family, and they've bought into like a certain set of beliefs that they just unquestionably repeat, and they say, I'm a free thinker. It's what's most important is to know your values as a person, what actually matters to you at the end of the day, and then to have an open mind in learning about how the world works and what is the best way to get from point A to point B to make my values more prevalent in society, make sure everyone's happy and flourishing and able to spend time with their friends and family, earn a good living, do honest work that gives them purpose. We all really want the same things out of life. And I think sometimes people fall into the trap of listening to political commentators so much that they lose sight of what politics is supposed to be and what democracy is supposed to be, which is a tool to build a better life for everyone. It doesn't have to be a sword to cut other people down. And I don't believe in just preaching to my own side. I believe you can persuade people. I believe that actually, if you really have these types of conversations across the country, 70% of people probably agree on this stuff, but they might start from a point of bitter disagreement, not because they're bad people, but because they're misled, they're ignorant, they don't know all the facts, they haven't heard X, Y, and Z piece of information that might change their mind, or they haven't had experiences with other people that they might judge, like, I think this group of people is all bad. When you actually meet them, you're like, wait, they're just people like me. It's like the exact same thing. We're all just humans at the end of the day. So I think that, like, what my goal is, with what I'm doing here, is to try to make that more common and to try to actually change minds, because I think people can change minds, and it doesn't happen overnight. I'm not going to make you register for the Democratic Party today, but what the way this works is, like, you push someone a little bit to, like, reconsider, and then you back off, give them space, don't hit them while they're down, don't take advantage of their humility. When someone shows humility like you've shown, show them humility back and say, just think about it now. I'm not going to berate you and say, like, see, you were wrong, I owned you. That's dumb, it's mean, right? I'll do that to people if they do it to me. I'll match people's energy. But you came onto this live with, I got a vibe from you. This guy's not a crazy bad guy. He's willing to have a conversation. So I yelled at the last 3 people I talked to, but then I didn't yell at you because I think that these types of conversations can change minds slowly but surely.
Yeah, man. It's all just about showing respect and caring about all of our fellow Americans.
Yeah.
Because I'll give you another little story. I don't remember if I mentioned it or not, but we were at the job site this morning, right? And our general contractor wanted everybody to come out for a big meeting and whatnot. And we had you know what a boom lift is, right? Maybe not.
Don't think
It's a piece of industrial equipment. It's essentially kind of like a crane, but it's a little platform that you raise up and you can use it to work on the side of buildings and whatnot. We had they had one of our biggest companies out there, Switch, right? They're an electrician company, and they're primarily Hispanic.
Mhm.
And these guys who were up in the scissor lift, they don't even speak English, right? They had them go up in the scissor lift. I can even show you. You can look on my my profile.
Sure.
I have a video of it because it just it made me so proud.
Mhm.
But they had these guys who probably didn't even understand the significance of at least entirely, of why they were putting this American flag up. But they had them go up in these boom lifts and raise this American flag, and everybody that was on the job site, they showed a lot of respect towards it. And
Yeah.
it made me really think about, like, we have all these people in this country that, in terms of technicality, are here illegally, and I use that in quotes now after talking to you a bit.
Appreciate
But
that.
they're all out there showing a lot of respect to this, and it's changed my opinion a lot on things. Talking to you, and I really appreciate you being open-minded and very kind about
I appreciate you, man.
all the things we've had to talk about this evening. It
And
means a lot.
I'll
man.
shoot you a follow as well. I'd love to send you some sources on the stuff I talked to you about today. And you're welcome back on the stream whenever you'd like. All
Yeah, you too, man.
right. Take care.
You as well. Have a good night.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut him off. I think he was going to say have a good night. You too.